All right. Get you getting us?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk TV Media Network. Our controls is Sam Gadu, your host, along with my co-host, Joa Bimba. It's politics. We have another co-host on his way. He's going to be a little bit late, Mr. Fasa. He's on his way. We do have a special guest tonight. It's Friday. Politics. Yeah, I Talk TV Media Network. This is where we go places where others do not go because we are the voice for the voiceless. And tonight we will be discussing a lot on our plate when it comes to politics, when it comes to what's happening in Liberia, and lots of other things when it comes to forestry, logging, a lot to talk about tonight. For those of you, our viewers, we have a special guest. Joy, how are you, man? How was your week?
My week, it's been a great week. Wonderful. hmm
Awesome. Wonderful week. Man, I'm glad to see you live. Man, you ready to dissect the issues of the day?
Yes, we're ready to go.
Okay.
And ready to flow.
Good. On a special note, we have our brother back there live who's joining us tonight from Liberia, Mr. James. James, welcome, man. How are you?
I'm very fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. For our viewers out there, James, yeah, it seems like James is adjusting a little bit of audio back there. For our
Yeah.
viewers out there and our listening audience, James, tell us about yourself. Who's James?
My name is James Harding Gyayu. I'm a journalist, and I'm currently the managing editor for the Daylight. And the Daylight is an online newspaper. We do environmental journalism, but I've been in journalism since 2004. I've been editor for several Liberian newspapers and including one magazine. And I'm currently a stringer with Reuters News Agency and the Thomson Reuters Foundation. I also do writing in the Monka Bay, which is one of the world's largest environmental publications.
Wow. That's James. How do you pronounce your last name again?
Gyayu.
Gayu.
Yes, Gyayu.
Do you mind if I just call you by James instead of just going with your last name? Are you comfortable with that?
Yes. I'm fine.
Okay. James is a journalist, almost 17 years under his belt. For those of you, our listeners out there, experienced journalist, um, independent, analytical, critical on issues, especially issues that concerns the general public and the Liberian populace. Also, here at Talk TV Media Network, we are an independent network broadcasting system. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and our website, and pretty soon we'll be getting on the airways as well. So, with no further delay, we will be going into the issues of the day, which has to do with what's happening in Liberia when it comes to logging and other issues that James has been reporting about over the years. And these are critical issues that have affected the living condition of our people, of local communities in Liberia, especially logging companies. The FDA is aware of that, giving the go ahead to logging companies to um, get all those mics, I mean, not mics, all the logging company, all the forest toned down and leaving our people at their own detriment with no improvement and promises being kept. Um, James, tell us a little bit about this story for our audience.
So the last month we did a story and an investigation into how a Singaporean family that owns three logging companies are basically just hoarding the forest. They have a lot of community forests, so they just basically stockpiling those forests, and the communities, local communities, are not benefiting anything from the agreement. They default on all of the agreements they've signed, and our investigation went into each of those three each of those uh, agreements, and we delve into them. We look at community rights. We look at violations of the forestry laws, and we were able to basically just show we were basically able to show how this Singaporean family,
Mhm.
is just basically depriving Liberians of their just, forest resources. Something that's supposed to make those communities wealthy, something that's supposed to bring development to those communities. So we just basically show how it was not working for them. And the FDA, I forgot to say that the FDA, has allowed and these three companies to basically operate these full community forests, and we show how the FDA hasn't been able to carry out its own oversight. The forestry laws provides that the FDA has oversight, a kind of execute its oversight when need be, and in these cases the FDA was not able to do that, and those are the things that we were able to unearth.
Okay.
And
Um,
and 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 just to make a little bit notation, these people, these forestry communities are part of them are in Lofa County, correct?
No, no, no. So they cut across Grand Bassa, Lofa County, and Bapolu. So in Bapolu, there are two community forests there that we talk about. So it's the
Hmm.
Boni Madingo Chieftain in the Bopolu district, and
Right.
the same goes to the Koninga B community forest, also in the Bopolu district. So
Okay.
Boni Madingo Chieftain, we are talking about 37,222 hectares of land,
Wow.
and yes, and in Koninga B, which is just next to in the same Bopolu district, we are talking about 31,818 hectares of forest land. So these are huge pieces of forest land that these communities have been able to give to these companies owned by this very powerful Singaporean family. And the other two communities here to make them full is Blue Yema, which of course you mentioned is in Lofa County, and
Uh-huh.
Blue Yema is in the Zozo district, is in the Balawala Zoo area, and Blue Yema is 4,444 hectares of forest land. So the forestry law provides that communities can manage their forests up to 15 years, subject to a 5-year review. So these communities, they go through a process to get that power, that right to
Right.
manage their forest. Yes, and they pay some money. They go through a long process, a non-step, rigorous non-step process that enshrine the process that is enshrined into the 2000 and now community forest community rights law. I'm sorry, community rights law of 2009. And
Okay.
when once they go through that process, then they can manage their forest. So upon their upon each of these four communities that we just talked about, as soon as they reach that level, they
Hmm.
went into an agreement. They went into an agreement with these three companies. So the Singaporean family owns 3 logging companies, and they are Sing Africa, Indo Africa, Sing Africa, Indo Africa, and Starwoods. And we're able to find out that even though there are 3 companies, but they are still being owned by one family.
So let me hold you right there. So you're saying,
yeah,
these 3 companies that are exploiting and looting the resources of Liberia without any compensation to local communities. They just established the companies in 3 different names, but with your research, they all belong to one family. Are you there? Can you hear me, James?
Yes, yes, I'm hearing you. So
they all
the forestry law does not.
So they all belong to one family, correct?
Yes, they all belong to one family, and they call them the Gupta family. And we were able to trace all of them. I mean, that there are a number of family members, like 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. It's taking been a month now. I work on a lot of stories, so I kind of forget some of the numbers. But it's like 4 or 5 family members, and they are all Guptas. Gupta. It's the same spelling as the Gupta family, the infamous or the controversial Gupta family in South Africa. So we were trying to find out whether there were any links, but we couldn't find it, so we can say it. But they all live in one area in Singapore, in a place called 2B Ramsgate Road. And we're able to get through Google, we're able to get a shot of the streets that they live on. And you see that where they live is a sharp contradiction to the communities in which they log, and those communities that they have not been able to deliver on the agreements that they sign with those communities. So yes, we are talking about 3 logging companies owned by one family, and they just basically sign agreement with communities, and they don't live up to those agreements, and the FDA does not do anything.
The FDA is doing nothing. I have a lot of mind to question, to ask, to probe, but I'll give my partner a chance. Joel, I see your mic is muted. You may want to come up so you can contribute.
Okay, got you.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, what do you have to say so far with what you've heard?
Thank you, Mr. Gayu. It's a pleasure meeting you again. It's been a while, and seeing you face to face. And I thank you for the work that you do. And I think to our viewers that are out there, we just want to say hi to you. Now, here's my question. So, you've been doing this investigation regarding these different logging companies. Have you been able to get involved? Because I know that they have a house committee that should be responsible for concession agreement. Have you been able to talk to the officials at the legislature that are responsible for oversight responsibility regarding these things?
No, for this story, I'm sorry, we didn't do it. We didn't think that they had a direct role to play, and it was a very big investigation. This is an investigation in which we were calculating the total number of hectares of forest land that these 3 companies owned by this Gupta family own. So there were a lot of other things that we had to deal with, and we just didn't deem it necessary to talk to folks that were not directly involved into the matter. But yeah, this is a good thing. They have a host committee on forestry, on natural resources, and maybe another time we can talk to them.
Okay, just for our listeners, we would like you to be just explain to them what hoarding is about. When the word hoarding is, what is it about, so they can understand the meaning of hoarding.
Okay, so the idea of a community forest is that the community sign this agreement with a company. I mean, actually, a community can even go into logging itself, but most of our communities are poor rural communities. So the law provides that they can enter into a third-party agreement, or in industrial terms, what they call a commercial use contract.
Yes.
So yeah, in forestry industry terms, you call it a commercial use contract. But it's easy for you to see that it's a third-party agreement because the law allows for community themselves to log. Once you meet you pass through those now steps that I told you about earlier, that gave you the right to now manage your forest 15 years, which every 5 years you review. You have now that ability to sign a third party agreement. What makes it third party? The government is the first party, you are the second party. So once you sign an agreement with a logging company, then now that company is the third party. That's how the third party comes about. So the whole idea about third party is for these communities to be able to sign this agreement with the logging companies, and then they can get a lot of social benefits, such as road, bridges, hospitals, schools, all these things that are lacking in communities, all these things that government has the statutory responsibility to providing, and these are the same things that the communities go for. So once this happens, then the FDA is like a referee between them. Even though the FDA has oversight, but yeah, it's a referee as well, and is looking at the law and seeing whether the laws are being applied. They're looking at the community, seeing whether they have a governance structure. Because once these communities, reach the threshold to manage their own forest, they must have a governance body. And in this, we call that particular governance body Community Forest Management Body, a CFMB. So the FDA looks at all these things, but there are other laws too. So for instance, if a company signs an agreement with a community, and that company is not living up to the agreement, the FDA has the backing from the law to take action. One action it can take is that the FDA can disallow that company from exporting logs. Because the law provides, and which we cited in this report, the law provides that it's only after a particular company, clears all of its forest related debts, that company must be allowed to export logs. It's in the regulations. It's in the regulation of the 2006 National Forestry Reform Law. Forestry reform in Liberia is pillars. One of the pillars of forestry reform is communities. The other two pillars are commercial and conservation. So an integral part of forestry reform is communities. Because before the Civil War, and even during the Civil War, you see that communities were being marginalized. People came into the communities, cut down logs, and did not benefit the communities. So when we had a sanction on us in 2000, in the early 2000s, that lasted all the way to 2006 before it was lifted. When we had that sanction, an integral part of the lifting of that sanction was that the governance of the forestry sector also be placed in the hands of communities, since they are the closest custodian of the forest. So you see, if a company come back home, where we're discussing first with the Guptas, and there are 3 companies that have signed these 4 agreement with these 4 communities, you see that it undermines everything that forestry reform in Liberia is all about. And I'm not speaking as an activist or an advocate. I'm a journalist and I'm citing laws here. We know what are the rudiments of forestry reforms. So if you say forestry reform is pillared on communities, and obviously communities are not benefiting, obviously you see that the law is not being implemented. And if the FDA is not taking,
Just to intercept you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, just to intercept you a little bit. So you've been going to these communities, and one of the issues we have is the fact that Liberia is a poverty-stricken area. Now, what are the living conditions with all of these companies that are present in the communities? You went there. can you give us some description of the living condition of the people in Bopolu? The last time I went there was 2012 in Bopolu, for Bopolu area. So can you give us a description of the living condition of the people in that particular terrain?
The people, Joel Bimba, the people have no schools. There are no schools there. There are no hospitals. You getting what I'm saying? There aren't any hospitals. There aren't clinics. You know, and rural condition is a major thing. We were talking about Blue Yemen, one of the communities that these group taps signed an agreement with in Zozo district in Lofa. So Blue Yemen understood that role was very important to them. So they wrote in their third-party agreement that the company will provide roads, you know, a lot of farm to market roads, but a lot of other roads that will connect that particular community to other parts of Zozo, to other parts of Lofa County. And that was one of the main reasons why they signed the agreement. Up to now, that has not happened. You know, there's a little bit of a hope with that particular agreement among the four communities that the Guptas have in concession, in logging concession. It is Blue Yemen that is most promising. It's not like I reported, it's not rosy. It's far away from being rosy, but it's at least it's better than the rest of the least worse.
Let me interject, guys. Let me interject just a little bit. James, how long, to your knowledge, has these Guptas, however you may call them, been operating in Liberia? Do you have any idea?
Their earliest concession is the one in Blue Yemen, the one I just talked about, and this is in 2015. 2015.
But
this is when they signed the concession.
Prior to that, if they'd been in the country operating.
No. That's their earliest concession, as far as our investigation, you know, was able to find. So the next after that was in a place called Boni Madingo Chieftain, and then after Boni Madingo Chieftain, then they went to another place called Koninga B. So in 2015 they signed this agreement with Blue Yemen, and then in 2018 they signed two agreements. One with the one with Boni Madingo Chieftain, which is in Bopolu County, in the Bopolu district. And then in that same 2018, they signed an agreement in Grand Bassa, in an area called in a community forest called Pobling, Matro Pobling, the Matro Pobling community forest. They signed that agreement there in 2018. Then in 2019, they signed the agreement with Koninga B. So Koninga B is their latest of concessions of the four concessions that we were doing.
So they are signing these agreements with the government of Liberia through the FDA.
No.
From what I'm understanding from you, have you? Because I tried, when I saw the story, I tried to reach out to a member of the FDA to no avail. I was not able to get anyone from there, but just for their hearing, if they are listening or if they ever come across this video or this show, we have our platform open to them if they want to come and explain to the Liberian people why they're signing all these concessions and all these agreements with this foreign national that is exploiting the country. And because logging is a very, very major commodity for the nation of Liberia. You know, when it comes to logging, the country is rich with resources. Logging is one of them. Have you confronted any of the members or any of the members of government, including especially the FDA, that's responsible for this?
Yes, and in that story, we talked to the head of the community forestry department, who is Attorney Gertrude Yale. She spoke to us, but then she could not speak to us on, she said she could not speak to us on commercial issues. So she was only able to speak to us on community forest issue, meaning the governance part of it, you know. And if you read the story, we quoted her on a number of occasions. We even ended the story with a quote, but we were not able to talk to the commercial department. I tried, I reached out to the department, I reached to the department head, Mr. Jerry Yoma. I also sent a letter to the FDA managing director, Mr. C. Mark Doyen. I sent another, I copied all of them. Mr. Doyen, I copied the deputy managing director for operations, Mr. Joseph Talley. Then I copied Mr. Jerry Yuma, who is the head of the commercial department.
So you've done quite a bit of
no response.
So you've done quite a bit of research extensively with regards to this story. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Talk TV Media Network. Today we are bringing a journalist, independent journalist. Liberia's resources have been exploited. And what is the Weah-led government doing with regards to this? This is our concerns as citizens of Liberia, because this is a bread and butter issue as well when it comes, you know, Joel, this is a bread and butter issue. This is what put food on the table for our people. This is what brings development, good clinics and hospitals, good roads. And all of these resources are leaving the country with no one being accounted for. What is the Liberian government doing with regards to it, especially the Weah-led government? Because these are the issues that people need to pay attention to come 2023, the election. It's not just about someone bringing you rice and giving you rice and, you know, a cup of rice or a bag of rice, and then you vote them in. These are issues that our generations will come and inherit. What is the Weah-led government doing? What's your take on that, bro?
I think a bigger part of the problem is the fact that I read the report that James did. And Jim, just to clarify, because I know the Millennium Scorecard is up, and one of the areas that we did pull again was the issue of corruption. Now, do you have any, because are the agreements published? Is there any way we can access these agreements?
Oh, sadly, the agreements aren't published. They're supposed to be published according to the National Forestry Reform Law. It is mandated that the FDA publishes these agreements, but the FDA does not publish them. And the FDA should be doing periodic publishing of its activity, its transaction. And the FDA isn't doing that. If you check on the FDA website, the information there is not up to date. And I look on the website, I saw 2020. So maybe it's even 1 year ago. They have not even updated the information that they have on it. And so, the law is strict. The law is saying that you should publish these pieces of information, and they are not doing it.
Now, and I asked that question for a reason, and I want people to look at it. And so one of the things I want people to understand here, these issues we are talking about, they are not new. And just as Gary you outlined. So, for example, from what Gary you outlined, we see here that the agreements were into being even before the Weah-led government, 2015.
Right.
Now, yeah. But one of the things that we need to take note here is that Liberia, on the corruption index, we make 137. That's our ranking, very poor on the corruption index. We are not making any progress in that area. And some of the things that are affecting us is some of the transparency issues on these kind of agreements. All right. So now, and if you look at the illicit financial cash flow, there's a report that was produced some time ago on illicit cash flow from countries. Mm-hmm. And Liberia is one of the major countries where you're having a lot of illicit cash flow from. And when they show you the numbers and you wonder, wow, Liberia is sending there's a lot of money is coming out of Liberia. But the truth is, if you look at these different concession agreements and you look at the resources that you guys are taking and how they are going unchecked. Now, if you put the sum total of all of those different things together over 5 years, over 10 years, then you see how the country is getting more depleted, and I'm happy that Jim is giving us some of these background issues that we're having here.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Talk TV Media Network. Our guest is James, who's with us
Yes,
this evening. James is coming to us from Liberia. He's talking to us directly from Liberia. And Joel, my co-host partner, is out there. We are discussing the issues that concerns Liberia, the forestry in Liberia. It's been looted. Our resources are being diminished by foreigners. And this is an issue, Joy, just for reminding me, it's not just a Judge Weah-led government. This started since Ellen Sirleaf, former President Ellen Sirleaf time, which leads me to believe that they probably initiated a lot of these, concessions in place. James, with regards to that, do you have any idea of any interaction with the Sirleaf-led government?
Of course, the Sirleaf-led government did a lot with forestry reform. So it started in 2006. We have the forestry reform law and its regulations, and then in 2009 we had the community rights law, the one that allows community to manage their own forest for 15 years, subject to 5-year review. But an unfortunate thing happened in 2012. We had the private use permit scandal of 2012, the one that landed the former head of the FDA, Mr. Walker, into jail. And there were several other government officials that were implicated in that scandal. So that once more, we did a lot with forestry reform. We allowed communities to be part of it, and who were denied for many decades. But then, hey, the PUP scandal show also that people can find their way, to go around laws and regulations, and they use forest land that came from private deeds. They misuse it, and it was a huge scandal in Liberia, the worst scandal in the forestry sector since the end of the Civil War. So yes, it is not today that we are having these issues. These issues are systemic, and they are decades old. But one thing that must be said here is that there are many steps being taken for transparency. Many steps being taken for strict adherence to the rule of law of forest governance. It's just glaring. It's there. Like I said, the Guptas, the companies, the three companies, they owe their 4 communities almost more than $300,000. Because
Wow.
when they sound these, $300,000. That's why they owe these communities.
This company is owing more than $300,000 and
more than $300,000.
No development has sufficed. Nothing has taken place.
Yes, they owe the communities, but they pay their fees to the government. And I've heard that argument before, that I've heard some government officials, some FDA officials say that the law gives them the right to go into an agreement, and the law gives them the right to get out of the agreement. So in some communities now, some communities now are canceling the agreement they signed with these companies. But it can be a long legal battle sometimes, and it takes a lot from the community. Mind you, there are some communities too where the companies are paying all the money, but then their own officials are squandering the money. So and one of squandering the money, one of those communities is a community in the same Koninga area, which is Koninga A, because the Koninga we've been talking about is Koninga B. They got 2 communities, they divided the forest, so it's A and B. In community A, the Kovayala pay all the money they're supposed to pay. They pay land rental fees, they pay other fees, they pay scholarship, and the community there took the money and ate it and squander the money. Misapply it, paying for legal services they can't justify, paying for transportation even though they already bought motorbike. you know. So we should be balanced in our discussion. I like to be balanced. I like to speak independently. So
Right.
there are communities that are also very corrupt, and Koninga, it was in the une community with such problem. There was a problem earlier on with a community in Grand Judea County by the name of Weah, and they have similar situation, and so. But the thing here is that when it comes to these communities, the FDA is very much proactive. The FDA goes in and arrests the situation. There's a situation in a place called Community B and C Forest in Grand Bassa County, where the FDA went and called for an election after there were reports of malpractices among the community leaders, and they put that whole concession to a standstill, and that whole thing hasn't. But at least they went there and they tried to stop something in another community in Nima County called Weah and Doru, specifically the Doru Community Forest. They went there. They are trying to have an election, even though it is like an unconstitutional election, if you will say, because the law provides they do election after 5 years, but now they had to go for the election because that area has always been messy. So I'm trying to say that there are places when it comes to community, the FDA takes its responsibility. It plays its oversight responsibility. But when it comes to the company, the FDA with these communities that I've just named. So, for instance, if they were applying the law, they say the Guptas they own Starwoods, they own Indo Africa, and they own Sing Africa. We are not going to allow you guys to ship any logs unless you are settled with these communities.
Right.
Even though the law say the community signed the contract, even though the community are an independent party in the contract, but the FDA has an oversight role. This is the law. It's not me saying it. I'm just citing what the law says. So the FDA could also play its role and make sure that those fees are paid, because government is not for profit. Government is not for the sake of the people who are governing. Government is for development, is for the people, so that lives can be transformed. So if that's the principle, then that principle is not applicable in these community forests.
And just to make a point here, one of the things that I know that the General Auditing Commission by law has the right to audit all of those kind of public agreements. They have the right, irrespective of whether one is a public agreement. The act that created the GAC gave them the power to do the kind of audits. And if the GAC were really functioning, if it really had the resources, then you'll be able to get periodic audits of those kind of arrangements, and you can start to see the amount of money the country is losing because of the excesses with those agreements. Now,
Right.
there's one thing also I want to point out here is I think all of you remember when we had they had to call it the Most Steven audit. There were Most Steven audit. Very well. Most Steven is an auditing firm. It audited about 48 to 68 concession agreements at the time.
Yes.
And according to that audit at the time, they said I think only 2 of those audits were really compliant. The rest of the other concessions were not compliant. And to make a very good point for people to understand, the 10 billion people can be talking about investment that came to Liberia. It was not cash. It was these agreements that people projected and say, okay, we'll be having about 10 billion investment over the period of
16
time.
billion.
So it's the yeah, exactly. So now, if you're talking about the investments like these kind of companies, if they are not paying their fair share, and if the Liberian government is not really stepping in to put them in check, our communities will not improve. Imagine 300,000. 300,000 can make a.
Looking at the economic state, Liberia, and that you could have a hospital, a very good one, good educational facility, school, and a library, a lot of good stuff. A lot of stuff can be done with $300,000 in Liberia. But just as we are hearing, these companies come in to exploit. And how do you guys feel having the leadership of the country? And I think it is not that Liberians are not capable of handling these kind of companies, but the government of Liberia not giving the Liberians that are capable the opportunity. You see how Ghana is and other West African countries surrounding us. Before you go in their country to develop anything, you have to go through a citizen of that country. But that's not the case with Liberia. If a Liberian was treating, his fellow brother like this, it will be a different story, because we know how long can you run? But these people leave their families, foreigners come into our country, and we give them all these rights, far more than the citizens that are capable. There are lots of Liberia business entrepreneurs out there that could handle a lot of these businesses, concessions, that they can tap into it to be able to develop the country. And I keep saying this is what the Liberian people need to listen to come 2023. These issues that concerns the Liberian people, because the aftermath of the war is still present in Liberia. When you visit Liberia, you still see, mental issues are out there. These children that went through war, 14 years of war, are still out there with no jobs. People graduating from the University of Liberia and pushing a wheelbarrow down waterside. It's hard. Because why? The government is not empowering the people. Empowerment, creating a safe environment for the people to be able to function. Liberian people, we're not beggars. To me, we're not beggars. We just need a safe an environment where we can function. You give a Liberian an environment where they can function, they will do more than you expect. But that opportunity, the government is not providing. And if you look at when Liberia came out of the war, 14 years, there has been a lot of money that came to Liberia, even under the Ellen Sirleaf leadership. Lots of money and aid, came to Liberia. Then right before she left, we had Ebola. Ebola came in, and another massive support came in. But the politics at the end of the day takes away all of this, while others are tapping underground, stealing iron ore, diamond, gold, timber, logs, exploiting the forestry, all of that. People take advantage of all these issues when there is a problem going on. And my hats off to James. You're doing a great job, man. You're doing a great job. To our listeners out there, we will open the lines. If you want to call in, you can call in and contribute. Give your ideas. If you have a question, the number is on the screen. It's a WhatsApp number as well, and also a USA number. It's 539-525-1552. 539-525-1552. You can call in if you need to. The lines are open. You can call in and participate and be a part. Your contribution as a Liberian or as a listener is very important to this show. Joel.
Yeah. James, one important question I want to ask you. Can you basically tell us about the challenges you are facing in terms of doing the kind of work? Because I know it takes a lot to get involved in the kind of investigative journalism. Can you please give us a little, challenges of what you go through?
The number one challenge here is funding. So you see, we run a non-profit environmental news website, is the Daylight, and so we don't do advertisement. So we depend on donor funding, and we just started in April earlier this year, and so funding has been an issue. However, we've been trying our weak ways, trying to get funding from anywhere. So a lot of smart ways of getting funding. Sometimes even rallying, doing some little crowdfunding, getting to people who like the idea of environmental journalism, and they put their 1 or 2 cents into it, and that's how we have been going. But there are a lot of issues, Joel, in this sector to report on in the entire environmental sector. Look at the issue with climate change. The biggest issue now in the world is climate change, and there's a lot between climate change and logging. There's a lot because logging means cutting down the trees,
Right.
but sustainable logging can help. Sustainable logging can help, but some of these loggings that are going on, they're not sustainable. People cutting down trees, outside of the standard operating procedure, in the forestry sector. We getting reports that people are cutting down trees, and then the authorities are not aware, at least, and they seemingly are not aware, and these kinds of things. So we need
Basically, they're
more and
cutting down trees that
concerted
are
efforts.
mature and trees that are immature.
Yeah, but yes, and you know how they do the logging. They have blocks. They have an annual operation plan, and then you cut the trees according to that plan. And when you cut a tree down, you should at least export it. The trees, the timber shouldn't remain in the communities and rot. We have reports, and we got photographs of timbers that are being abandoned, and they are getting rotting in communities. So these are our issues, and one of the things we are passionate about the job that we do. I mean, you're talking about challenges, Joel. Other than funding, the issue of our safety,
Yeah.
forestry is a big money making thing.
I agree
You
with you
know,
100%.
I just got a very young son. My son is going to be 3 months and 4 days from now. He's going to be 3 months old. So I got a very young son. What happens to him, and what happens to my daughter and my family if some of us are disappeared, in quotation, we they disappeared us? What happens to that? Sometimes we think about our safety,
I agree.
because forestry is a big money making thing. Like I
Yeah,
said,
it is.
it is the third biggest contributor to the budget
Yeah.
after the mining sector and the agriculture sector. you know so we're talking about money here. We're not just talking, we're talking about
Yeah.
cash,
And
millions
these
of
guys,
dollars. Or
and
most
these guys
recent,
think you're about to stop
uh,
their food. You're exposing them.
that's it.
So it
So
is a risk.
we need authority. We need people to implement the laws. We are not bad people. We are journalists. We are watchdog of society. Without journalists, a lot of things wouldn't go on. So we are very, very mindful of our safety. We worry about our safety at times, but we have to do this job. We can't just sit.
Right.
So somebody say, oh, you got to be mindful of your life. Yes, we are mindful, but we have to report. And if some of us are dedicated the rest of our lives, with exposing wrongdoings in the extractive sector, and we're not going to stop.
That's passion right there. He's not going
Yeah.
to stop, he said. That's good. And our prayer is that you be careful out there and continue doing the things that you love. Because I can sense talking to you that this is what you enjoy doing, your love of country, Mama Liberia. This is what's getting you doing this. Your passion for it.
So
Money,
surely, should I've been doing this
resources.
since I was 21. It
Yeah.
hasn't really brought me riches. It hasn't given me material things. But it has taught me a lot. I mean, it has taught me about our country. I know a lot of villages. When you talk about some villages, I can put faces and voices to those places because I have been there. You were asking earlier about the poverty in these places. It's heart wrenching, if you go to these places and see what's going on there. Children are in school. It's an easy thing. In one community called Weah and I mentioned earlier, once you reach 7th grade, you have to look for people to live with. Now you have to move to Yapata in Riverses, or you move to Tapeta, or if you don't have a relative there, then you have to be moved to. And there's a lot that go on between that. Trafficking goes on there. So there's an investigation that we are currently conducting about the link between the failing concessions
And
and trafficking.
yeah.
Did I
So
hear you
it's
say
not just,
trafficking goes on there as well? Trafficking?
of course, if this concession, if this forestry concession, this logging agreement
Yeah.
signed between this community and a company, and the company said we will build school, and then after 6, 7, 8, 10 years, there aren't any schools. And if you are in that place and you reach 6th grade and 7th grade and 6th grade is the last class, if you want to follow your education, what do? You obviously must leave. And then what if you don't have a relative in those places that you want to go to school? So you must be put in the hands of a stranger. You don't do due diligence. You don't
Right.
ask whether the man sneaks on the child in the night, and molest the child. You don't
Just
you
hold
don't
on.
check on all those things.
Just hold on, James. We have a call on the line. One of our guys calling in. He may have a contribution because we almost have just about 8 minutes to go to an hour. This is an hour show. Caller, Mr. Foster, are you there? Can you hear him, James?
No, I'm not hearing him. Maybe you will relay it to me once he finishes. I don't think the audience.
I've been following for the past half hour. James, my concern has to do with those other people who doing the plank business, those who sawing plank in our forests. Do you guys also looking at that aspect? I know the logging is a huge one, but equally so, I'm talking about the environment. You got people who will cut down all the trees just to make planks. There are a lot of people who are sawing in our forests. What can you tell us about that aspect of the deforestation?
Did you hear
Yes,
that?
and pit sawing has, unregulated pit sawing has been equally a menace in the sector. So I remember 2 months ago, the FDA issued a moratorium on the harvesting of cotton trees because they said the cotton trees is very, very good for wawa, what we call wawa, used for construction.
Yeah.
So and the unregulated pit sawing has been a big issue in the sector. Yes, it has been very much linked to deforestation. It has been very much linked to illegal logging. Where community members will just come and some stranger will come in the community and they don't follow the law, they don't follow the regulation on pit sawing, and they allow the people, to pit soil. And the guys justify it by saying we stay here all these years, we don't get anything from the forest. Why don't we do it? So yes, it's a huge need, if I can say it's a huge need for us to also pay attention to these things too. And we are also planning a very big elaborate story on pit sawing.
Pit sawing. Yeah, that's a very good question. Do you have any further comment, Mr. Fasa?
Well, my last comment is that I think we need to bring James on time and maybe subsequent time to see, because this is a major issue for our environment, and to see how we can continue this discussion. And James, my one concern is you guys are making all this report. What pressure are you putting on government to make sure that they try to implement what is on the books? Do you guys have the ability, or maybe liaising with somebody else, to put pressure on government to make sure that the law on the books, right, they enforced? Something at reporting. What are you doing to follow through?
This. Yeah, thank you for that question. This is a very troublesome question. It comes up all the time to journalists. It's very perennial. So for us journalists, we are watchdog society. We report issues. We try to uncover who be wrong. We uncover wrongdoings in society. So our job actually stops at our reporting. I can Singaporean group, this Singaporean family, they have all these community forests and they are now really living up to the agreement they signed with these communities. It now behooves the FDA and all of those who are connected to the sector to act. All of the duty bearers, they will say, to act. So I wouldn't go to court. Maybe some civil society group or some other people, or maybe the community people can go to court, but I wouldn't go and sue them. But we journalists expect that when we publish these reports, people will act upon them. And if they don't act, we keep on publishing. We keep
Yes.
on publishing. We don't stop. So the people in the public need to understand where our work stops, where it begins, where it stops. Maybe later on in the future we can have more conversation. Maybe it's time for journalists now to not just write report, but also file a lawsuit, to place an injunction on things. Maybe that's the conversation we should be having, because as times change, everything sort of change along with time. So this is a conversation that I really, really like. But as it is now, we can only report these stories.
Yeah. Holding our government accountable for all of this. Mr. First, I thank you very much for calling. So we are down to the wire. We have about 3 minutes to go. It's an hour show. Politics is where what we discuss on every Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time here at Talk TV Media Network to you, our listeners out there. And Saturday, tomorrow, every Saturday is sports, Talk TV Sports at 12 noon. We talk about soccer, what's going on with the Liberian national team, SKD Sport Complex, qualification to the FIFA World Cup, and other sports nations around Africa, and also here in the U.S. We take a look at football, American football. We'll have someone special in studio tomorrow as well to handle that part of it. Then come Sunday is Talk TV Sunday, Gospel Day, where we invite religious people to discuss religion. Christianity. It's not just Christianity. We discuss other religions. We discuss God. We discuss everything because we are an independent station. We do not take sides. We deal with the issues and leave them for people to decide. This is where we dig for the truth. So Sunday, that is with me, the CEO. You can join me, and that is at 2 p.m. every Sunday afternoon. To you, our listeners out there, we would love for you to share our videos, subscribe, and leave us your reviews on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We'll soon be adding Twitter as well, also to this, and also on our website. We'd love to hear from you because it is for your business that we are here. Without you, there's no way we'll be sitting here. We are here to champion for the cause of the Liberian people and save society. James, I know you have a lot packed inside you, a lot you want to say tonight, but our time is up, man. I know we just have to go with the time. Any final word, man? Give your final word.
I just want to say a big thank you to you and to you, Sam, and Joel Bimba, my CWA classmate. It's been a very long time, and like I said before, this is my first of such appearance. I've appeared on the radio before, but having appeared on such broadcast, and it's very interesting. I think I'm beginning to like it. Maybe in the future we can have more of these conversations. My only problem here is that most of the times when you appear on these programs and then they start to think that you are a politician, I really hate being labeled a politician. I did political science, but I really try to eschew politics because it kind of jeopardizes our balance and our independence as journalists. So I really don't like to get on a political show. I like to be technical, at least everybody sees what you're saying. But thank you very much.
Thank you. But man by nature is a political animal. So yeah, all of us are not politicians. We're not politicians, but we are here to make sure that politicians don't lead us astray. And so we are here to call them out. That's what the show is. That's what we do. My brother, man, Joe.
Yes. Thank you for the the deliberations. And I think the information provided is so important to those of you listening out there. I always tell people sometimes don't understand the issues we are discussing here. They are not just about politics. It's about livelihood. It's about survival. People need to understand, because these are communities that are very poor, and if there are companies operating there, and those companies are not really doing what they should do, people are dying. Maternal mortality rate is very high in Liberia, and part of the reason why it's high because these different companies we have in the country are really not doing anything to impact their communities. So for you listening out there, it's not about politics. It's about day-to-day issues that are affecting the lives of people.
Thanks. That's his last word. And gentlemen, I want to be very, very thankful to you for joining us today. And we look forward for another hot show tomorrow. For those of us who are sports fans, soccer fans, tomorrow. Right here at Talk TV Media Network at 12 noon. That would be, I think, around 6 p.m. Liberian time tomorrow. And until then, we look forward for more stories. If you have something, if you see something going on in your neighborhood, you need to reach us. A major issue you want us to confront that is affecting the livelihood of Liberians and people or in any society, contact us via this medium. We'll be glad to take up, or send us an email, a text. Drop us some lines, and we'll take care of it. We'll handle it, because we are here to make sure that the world we live in is a better place. Until then, gentlemen, thank you very much. And the Spanish man say, adios.
Okay, thank you.